Lindsay Hawker thought her trip to Tokyo to teach English would be the start of an incredible journey. Little did she know that it would turn into something so horrifying, and she would end up losing her life. So join us as we talk about this terrifying case that will make you reconsider approaching any stranger you see in public. Welcome to YARO Crime. Today, we'll look at the case of Tatsuya Ichihashi, the killer who deformed his own face. Before we continue, please like the video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on our latest videos. Now join us as we disclose this terrible true crime case of Tatsuya Ichihashi. Lindsay Hawker arrived in Tokyo's Edogawa ward in October 2007, ready to begin her new job at the Tokyo branch of Nova, which was one of Japan's biggest private English schools. Lindsay Hawker was born to Julia and Bill Hawker on December 30, 1984, in Coventry, England. She was the middle of three daughters, alongside her sisters Louise and Lisa. 21-year-old Lindsay visited Tokyo, Japan, in October 2006. She decided to move there with the intention of staying a year. She found a house there in the city's suburbs and started working as a teacher at the Nova English Language School. For the next 6 months, she went daily on her bike to and from school for work, leaving it behind at the Chimba train stop. Lindsay prepared to ride home on her bike one day in March 2007, after picking up her bike at the station. But unlike the other days, a man who identified himself as her student approached her as she was unlocking the lock on her bike. However, she did not know the man. She politely tried to excuse herself and started riding away on her bike. She attempted to get away from this awkward situation as far as she could go, but the man just began jogging alongside her. The guy continued to pursue her, running at full speed to catch up with her. He eventually started asking Lindsay a succession of questions like, "Where are you from? How old are you? Why did you come to Tokyo?" But she didn't answer to any of them. She eventually made it to her apartment, but he followed her all the way to her house. Lindsay attempted to tell him goodbye once more, but he cut her short, asking her another question. He asked her if she could teach him English privately. He proposed to pay her handsomely by the hour for these lessons. She declined his request, explaining that she didn't know him and that she was too busy with her duties at the school to find the time to give him an individual lesson. The man was obviously disappointed in her answer. Before leaving, he appeared to accept her response, but he asked if he could go inside her apartment for a glass of water. He had run all the way from the Chiba station with Lindsay, and he was clearly very exhausted and thirsty. Lindsay was reluctant to let the man into her house, because she was alarmed by the way he chased after her. But because she shared a house with 2 other people, she knew it was highly unlikely that he would attempt anything. The stranger asked Lindsay if she would consider his offer after she had let him inside, this time proposing to pay her 3,500 yen per hour. The man was delighted with Lindsay's response, and she ultimately agreed to accept the additional cash and promised to meet him at a coffee shop a few days later. He thanked her briefly before he departed, but he wanted to express his gratitude, which he did in a very strange manner. He took a sheet of paper and a pen out of his pocket and started writing on it before giving it to Lindsay. He had sketched a rather unsettling picture of her, which undoubtedly would have only made Lindsay feel worse. He had jotted down his name, phone number, and email along with the drawing. Tatsuya Ichihashi was born in 1979 to a dentist and a medical doctor. He originally wanted to become a doctor, but failed his exams and instead pursued a career in horticulture. He lived on a monthly allowance from his parents and had no previous convictions. However, he was the subject of a report of theft and injury 6 years before he allegedly attacked a woman on the street during a robbery. The issue was resolved out of court, and his father paid the woman 1 million yen to drop the charge. He had an obsession with physical fitness, and he regularly attended the gym and cycled 25 kilometers a day. That was why he was able to keep up with Lindsay on her bike. On the 20th of March, 2007. Lindsay met Tatsuya for a private English lesson at a Tokyo cafe. The two of them were captured by CCTV. Lindsay appeared at ease, but she made an attempt to keep a safe distance between herself and Tatsuya whenever he approached her. He then persuaded Lindsay to accompany him on the brief taxi ride to his apartment so that he could pay her. He pretended to have lost his wallet. Lindsay clearly wanted to get this over with as soon as possible because she had work later that day and didn't intend to stay at his apartment for long. As soon as they arrived, Lindsay informed the taxi driver that she would return shortly. However, when she did not return nearly 10 minutes later, he decided to leave. Later that day, the Nova School discovered Lindsay had not come to work, which was very surprising because she had never missed work before and she hadn't returned to her flat either. This caused her roommates to believe that something might have happened to her. They later contacted the police that night to report her missing. Lindsay's family, with whom she communicates every day online, became concerned after she went several days without reaching them. On Monday, March 26, she missed another day of work. Nova then called her parents to inform them of their daughter's sudden disappearance. Before contacting the police, the officers started their investigation at Lindsay's apartment and interviewed her roommates. They told the authorities that Lindsay had gone to a coffee shop before her disappearance and that the man she met there had given her a sketch with his name and contact information on it. With this hint, the police had their first suspect. Officers arrived at Tatsuya's residence at 5:30 p.m. that day, but no one appeared to be there. Neighbors led the cops into their house so they could inspect Tatsuya's apartment, while the living room lights were turned off. They could see that Tatsuya was indeed in there, trying to hide from the cops. What puzzled the cops was that Tatsuya appeared to have moved his bathtub from the bathroom to the balcony. Fearing a hostage situation, the two police officers on the scene called for backup, and 7 more officers arrived shortly after. The 9 police officers prepared to break into the Tatsuya apartments before they could do so. Tatsuya. They opened the door and bolted past the policeman. They attempted to grab him, but he was too fast, and the police lost sight of him as he fled the apartment building. He apparently ran so quickly that nobody saw where he went. Failing to catch him, the police instead searched his apartment. And naturally, I went to investigate the bathtub on the balcony. Inside the bathtub, they'd found that it had been filled with a mixture of sand and soil. When they investigated more closely, they saw human hands sticking out of the surface. When they emptied the bathtub, they found the naked body of Lindsay Hawker. She had been severely beaten before being strangled to death. Her head had also been shaved. Tatsuya had buried her in the bathtub with a decomposing agent to speed up the decomposition of her body. The police had announced a nationwide manhunt for Tatsuya, which made him the most wanted man in the country. His face was shown on news stations all over the world, and he should have had nowhere to hide. However, as the weeks and months went by, it seemed less and less likely that he would ever be found, which frustrated Lindsay's parents. To raise awareness about the search, they traveled to Japan and publicly criticized the Japanese police for failing to catch the killer. During this time, Tatsuya was still on the run, traveling through all of Japan to avoid capture, and when he was not traveling, he would hide on a remote island near Okinawa. Tatsuya was homeless in Osaka in 2008, where he would be working as a construction laborer. He used all the money he had made for plastic surgery to throw police off his trail. He even went as far as performing primitive surgery on himself, cutting off moles and parts of his lower lip. In 2009, the police raised the reward for any information leading to his arrest from $1 million to $10 million. A breakthrough in the case occurred on October 24, when a plastic surgeon in Nagoya informed the police that he had just performed nose reconstruction surgery on Tatsuya. Unfortunately for Tatsuya, he had agreed to have before and after photos taken, which were shared with news stations across Japan and shown around the world. Tatsuya made his way to the Osaka ferry ports to make the 3-day journey to Okinawa, but the law caught up with him before he could board a ferry. One of the workers saw his face and informed security that he was Tatsuya Ichihashi, the man wanted for the murder of Lindsay Hawker. The police were called, and he was finally arrested 2 years after he had been on the run. Tatsuya was charged with abandoning a dead body, rape and murder, and was held in custody for 18 months before his trial. He admitted to all of the charges and was sentenced to life in prison, despite the public and Lindsay's parents calling for his execution. Thank you very much for watching the video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you all next time.